Nandor, this army you have raised, what is the end game?
To conquer. To take the battle town by town, from here to the very steps of Canaan capital itself.
Right, but why?
So that Canaan capital will rule the day they cast out their greatest warrior.
Hello, all, and welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I am Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
And I'm Baby Becky. Yes, Baby Becky is with us tonight. She's happy to be here. So tonight we are covering What We Do in the Shadows, Season 6, Episode 5, titled Nandor's Army. Please note, this is a spoiler-filled podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, no problem. Come back later, check us out after you have finished the episode. Before we get into tonight's episode, I do want to take a moment to say that I know a lot of us are disappointed in the election results and are feeling down. I definitely don't have all of the answers, nor I know there isn't much I can say to make everyone feel better, but please don't despair. As Wednesday went on, I was struggling to find any kind of peace, and then I listened to Kamala Harris's concession speech. And if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend you check it out. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I would like to share a part of her closing. There's an adage a historian once called a law of history, true of every society across ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that's not the case. But here's the thing, America. If it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant billion stars, the light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service. And may that work guide us even in the face of setbacks toward the extraordinary promise of the United States of America. So Mandy and I both say to all the women, people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, and every single person feeling sadness, anger, or fear, please know we stand with you and you are not alone.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Becky. And I really appreciated when you pointed me towards that speech, because I've pretty much logged off of social media since Tuesday evening, just because there's no point in destroying my peace. I wasn't shocked. I was upset and sad, but certainly not shocked that America picked the choice that they did. I really was reminded when a friend of mine reached out to me, a person who was an immigrant to this country and came here at 17, left an abusive marriage, taught herself English from watching old TV shows, took her daughter and ran from that situation, and has made an incredible life for herself here for the last 30 years. And she's been a citizen for a very long time, married to a citizen, has 2 children that are citizen, and she's still afraid right now. And she reached out to me on Wednesday to tell me, I love you so much, and I appreciate you always being here for this brown girl. And weirdly, that brought me a lot of peace, because it made me feel exactly the way that Kamala was trying to instill in everyone with that speech. It was the knowledge that I am not going anywhere. I'm not, as an ally, I am a straight, white, middle-aged woman. A lot of the fears that people have of this coming administration probably aren't going to really apply to me, but they're going to apply potentially to a lot of people that I love. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to shut up, and I'm not going to sit down. So I just want to add to what you already said so beautifully, that for all of the people out there that are allies, that aren't necessarily the marginalized communities that are potentially being threatened by this incoming administration, don't sit down, don't shut up. You are the stars that Becky's talking about that need to be shining the brightest so that you can guide the people that are very, very concerned about what is going to happen in the next few years. So yeah, that's all I want to say. That's my thoughts.
Well, as a biracial woman. I appreciate you, and I love that as I sobbed on Tuesday night, you were a ray of light, and you've always been an amazing support system, and I love you very much. And baby Becky loves you too.
I love
She
you.
said that.
And you, as always, have amazing boobs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we will step off our soapboxes now and dive into the episode. Mandy, could you please tell us what the synopsis is?
Oh, I'm so excited for this. The vampires go on a mission to New Hampshire to retrieve Nandor, who has lost his mind.
I'm going to skip my overall opinion on the episode because there's so much juice. I don't know, that's probably sounded gross. There's so much awesomeness in this episode. I'm just going to dive right in. So if you have any overall thoughts you want to give, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm ready to go to show moments.
So something I told Becky when we got here tonight, I told her I have so much nerd knowledge to drop on her in this episode. And her face only fell for a moment as she probably thought back to all of the boring and tedious conversations we had. But she's going to love this. She's going to love this. Becky, this entire episode was an homage to a very, very famous movie. It's a movie I've only seen once. Do you remember Sheila that we used to work with?
Yes.
Yeah. So you remember I told you that back in the day I used to hang out with her D-bag son many, many years ago in the 90s. And one night over way too many White Russians, he forced me to watch this film. And it's a wonderful film. It's a classic. I'm sure that there are many, many, many classic moments in here that if I went back and I watched it, I might enjoy it. But I've never been able to watch it again because it was such a beloved film by all of the douchey guys that I knew growing up back in the 90s. And it is, do you want to guess?
No, I'm not. I'm like trying to sit here and think of what you're even. I have no idea.
It's Apocalypse Now. The whole plot, there were so many moments that were ripped I had so many flashbacks that were ripped straight from Apocalypse Now. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a moment and just read the summary of Apocalypse Now because I had a feeling that you are also averse to D-bags, possibly had missed this movie as well. It's based on, Apocalypse Now is actually based on, it's kind of a remake of a classic novel called Heart of Darkness. Heart of Darkness was about the ivory trade in the Congo in the late 1800s and just how horrible that was for the people living in the Congo. Apocalypse Now is in 1969 during the Vietnam War, jaded MACV SOG operative Captain Benjamin L. Willard is summoned to I Field Force headquarters in Nha Trang. The officers there tell him that U.S. Army Special Forces Colonel Walter E. Kurtz is waging a brutal war against the Viet Cong and the Khmer Rouge forces without the permission of his commanders. He is based at a remote jungle outpost in eastern Cambodia where he commands Americans, Montagnards, and local Khmer militia troops. The troops view him as a demigod. So I'll leave it there. But yeah, that's the basic gist of it. The whole overarching theme of this plot, so many of the quotes were pulled and characters were pulled straight from that film, and I will be bringing that up many times as we go through here.
Excellent. That's a very good catch.
Thank you. First, and again, before we do move on, because the very first thing that really caught my attention outside of the first couple of lines is I want to bring up that the theme song itself, if you notice, was different tonight, right?
Yeah. Was that Matthew Berry?
That was Matthew Berry.
I knew it.
So that was supposed to sound like The Doors, because The Doors was the theme song of Apocalypse Now. I can't remember which Doors song it was, but that was what he was referencing. That was the homage in that style that he was doing in the theme song tonight. And did you know something else I learned this week? Matthew Berry helped to write, and you can hear his voice in the theme song for Dancing with the Stars.
Really?
Yep. I know you're a fan. You're a fan of Dancing
I love
with the Stars,
dancing. I love Dancing with the Stars once they got rid of Aaron Andrews.
Yeah.
That's another story for another day, people.
Right. But yeah, if you listen to it, I'll send you the clip later if you want. You can hear Merritt.
Yeah, I need to, because I rewound that twice because that's Matthew Berry. I know that's Matthew Berry.
Yep.
But then I was like, no, maybe it's not Matthew Berry, but it is in my notes right here. I liked the different opening theme version. Matthew Berry, question mark.
That's what he was doing.
For clarifying that. He did a great job. I liked it.
He did. Yeah.
I really liked it.
And in addition to being a comedic genius, he is a musical genius.
All right. So we open up at the house and the search for Nandor is on. There's so much amazing Colin Robinson and Nadja in this. Colin Robinson's setting the trap, the bear trap, and using wine.
Wine and balls. Why?
Balls? I mean,
he doesn't even drink. He doesn't drink blood. Why was he? I rewound that 3 times because it's dark and you can't really tell and it goes by so quick. I rewound that and got my face up right on my TV today to see what kind of balls is he putting in that trap? It was soccer balls and basketballs and then just a carafe of wine. Why?
Yeah, but I think he had glasses. There was like the carafe and the glass and then him shouting into the vent.
Yeah.
Nandor, I feel like Colin Robinson was phoning it in on the search for Nandor. He really didn't care if they found him or not. He was going to do the bare minimum.
Right.
But it still doesn't make sense as to why he went with, what was it, a basketball?
A basketball, soccer ball, and a glass of wine. But I think it just kind of showed Colin Robinson is so clueless to what motivates. He's such a strange, odd duck that he genuinely just doesn't understand other people enough, even his roommate of the last 100 years, to know what would lure him. Where would he hide? I don't know. Maybe an air vent? I don't know. Let's throw some basketballs out there. That might bring him.
I thought of you when Nadja and Laszlo were on the roof, yelling his name into the wind, and the neighbor's like, shut the fuck up. And they're yelling, no, you shut the fuck up.
Yeah. And Nadia has got a new power tonight. She has a big voice that can has they ever done that before?
I don't know. As I continue the rewatch, I've made note because I'm curious if that's something she's done before, but I love how she uses it later.
Yeah, for sure. That was the voice I used on my dog yesterday when she was making me have a heart attack for the 450th time.
I wish I could have seen that.
I wish that I could have literally blown the doors out like that. It may have gotten my point across. She just ignored me.
Oh, it wouldn't. The reward signs, I'm telling you right now, Amanda Walker, if I go missing and you use a photo like that one, we're going to fight. I don't care if you have to go 20 years back to find a photo of me.
Oh,
it better not look like
man, that made me laugh so hard.
Nandor.
It looked like Nandor, like his mouth is wide open, his eyes are half shut.
If I saw that on a missing poster, I probably would not look for that person.
And they had, especially because he had vampire teeth.
Yeah.
They were offering $3. And then when
$5, but I just said $3. $5 seems like an awful lot.
Well, if you notice, it was $3, and apparently they'd put those up and that wasn't working. So they were bumping it up to $5, and Nadia was upset because she felt like that was way too much.
Oh, I saw it the opposite. I thought it was started at $5 and then she was changing it to $3 because she thought $5 seemed a bit much.
No, I think it's $3 and then she was bumping it up to $5. But then when the Baron calls to tell him that he wants him to come over, she's like,
and he may have found about the award. The reward.
When he says he may have found Nandor, she says, don't tell him about it. She doesn't want to give up that $5.
She is not. I still say $3. The shade on Guillermo this episode and every episode, but I don't know why this episode, it just stood out to me. But when he walks in and baby Nadja is even like, I can't even look at you right now. And her little head squeaks as she turns it to the side. And Laszlo saying that the blood of Nandor's broken dreams has pooled at the bottom of Gizmo's oddly shaped feet.
I have that written down too. It's the very specific insult about his oddly shaped feet that was my favorite part about that. And I love how committed he is to Gizmo. He never breaks.
Never.
I don't know that he's ever called him Guillermo.
I don't think he has. And if he does, I'm going to be disappointed. I think this just needs to go through.
He just needs to ride that bit out. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we get to the Baron's house, and I don't know why, because I don't think they've ever done this before in this show, but I know it's been done a million times. But I still found it hilarious with the finger foods. With the actual fingers and the blood dip in the center. And the whole time, Nadja and Laszlo are actually sitting there chewing on these fingers.
Yeah, what was that stuff? I really want to know what that was made out of. What were they eating? Because it looked disgusting.
Oh, it looked horrible.
And I love that Colin is over there mumbling about how, per his email, he does not eat blood.
He needs a crescent roll or something.
But I love that he emailed the host before he was on his way. That was such a Colin Robinson thing to do. Not like pick up a phone or anything. As per my email, I don't consume blood.
Yeah, I'm probably going to need a crescent roll or something.
Yeah, just a crescent roll.
He reminded me of the stapler guy on the Office Space that was going to burn the office down.
Yeah, that was just mumbling.
That's my Colin Robinson.
Colin Robinson is, in general, that guy. He is very, very similar to, oh man, I love that. I haven't seen that movie a million times. Milton, yeah.
Milton was his name. We need to cover that.
Do you remember the warehouse guy at our old job that looked just like Milton?
Oh, his name just went right in and out of my head. Yes.
Looked just like him.
Just like him.
Had
he was a sweetheart.
Desk in Warehouse B.
Gary?
I think it was Gary. Yeah.
I think it was Gary.
He got his desk in the warehouse. It was almost like whoever gave him that desk was a fan of Office Space and was just wanting to, again, commit to the bit. He was just like, no, this is hilarious.
Kenneth.
That was it.
Kenneth.
It was Kenneth. Yep.
I cannot remember 87% of my life, but I can remember our little warehouse man's name.
Well, he was a good guy.
The Baron, and how he manages to make New Hampshire 47 syllables.
How did he say it again? I loved that too. I was always struck by how he says vampire instead of vampire.
And what were the vampires doing? Scanning the radios? Do they just sit and scan the radio channels?
Well, that is yet another. That was one of the references back to Apocalypse Now. There's one of the scenes in Apocalypse Now at the very beginning where the guy is they're telling him they want him to go out and find this wackadoodle that's gone AWOL and is living out in the middle of the jungle. They have intercepted some kind of communication from him, and they play it for the guy. And the quote about, I have seen a snail crawling across the surface of what is that thing that you cut?
A Sharpie?
Called a Sharpie? That is a quote from a modified quote from Apocalypse Now.
I like how Colin Robinson has to be like a razor. He's talking about a razor.
Yeah.
I also love that in the midst of Nandor's despair of ranting his loathe of Wall Street, and they're build your own salad bowls.
Yes.
Really, really upset about that.
Yeah. He's not wrong.
I like that they took us on a road trip this time. And I do want to say this show, the creators, the producers, the writers, set design, they are genius, because not often do shows like this get to, travel a lot. Mostly they're in one or two settings, but I think they did a phenomenal job of setting up that warehouse to look and feel as dreary, and it just added to Nandor's desperation and despair. Right. I thought it was well done. And there's one scene where he's sitting at his war council table, and the dummy behind the mannequin, I should say, behind him, they were anatomically correct. And I had a hard time not looking at the pieces and parts of those mannequins, and they were so shiny.
The mannequin dong, or the mannequin fold where their dong should be.
Well, it was like a bowl.
Yeah.
So I guess when the pants were on, it would look like it's supposed. I don't know, but it was.
Well, now you're going to have me looking at crotches of mannequins the next time I go.
You're welcome. Enjoy that.
So the darkness, though, That is another callback too, because when he finds the crazy guy in Apocalypse Now, the film itself is very dark. Like his lair is very, very dark. It was Marlon Brando in the film, and you can almost not even tell that Colonel Kurtz or Captain Kurtz or whoever is Brando, because it is so dark in his little dank area. So I think that the warehouse was deliberately, that was part of the whole vibe that they were going for.
Oh, well, they killed it.
They killed it for sure.
I'll tell you who else killed it. Is Colin Robinson cracking himself up with the Cock and Sons joke.
The Cock and Sons joke, I have that written down too, because that's a Mandy joke. Don't you think that's a Mandy joke?
Well, that's funny you say that, because I feel like that was a Becky joke.
Very
Because it made me stop and think of a lot of times I've been the only one in the room laughing when I said the joke. And I'm like, am I Colin Robinson?
I think we both have a touch of Colin Robinson, but I will also, and we definitely both have a touch of a 12-year-old boy as far as our sense of humor goes and the things that we'll laugh at.
100%.
I loved how he kept calling him Nan Man. I think that's adorable.
There is no Nan Man here. Only Nandor the Relentless.
And he had his Dracula hat on.
He had his full, he was in his full regalia. And
that led me to realize something that I have never picked up on in all 6 years of this show. The three main characters, not Colin Robinson, but the other three like actual blood drinking vampires, they are based on three of the most popular vampire stereotypes in history. I don't know how I didn't see this before, but Nandor is supposed to be like the historical Dracula who was a warlord in Transylvania in like the 1400s. Laszlo is supposed to be Lord Ruthven, which was this based on Lord Byron, this kind of amoral, hypersexual British lord. And Nadia is supposed to be based on, I think, two characters. The Lamia, which is a Greek prototype. She was an early version of what ended up being a lot of the vampire myths. And Carmela, which was a famous story about a lesbian vampire.
Oh, I did the audiobook on Carmela.
It's a good story. I read it.
It was kind of, I don't know.
But yeah, I like to listen to every once in a while during the Halloween seasons. I'll get classic British horror stories. They're not quite as scary as modern stuff. It's just more atmospheric, and I'll just listen to it while I'm working. And that's one I listen to fairly often.
So I'm going to go back to Guillermo Shade. I will never tire of the camera panning onto him and his facial expressions every time they give him grief or insult him or expect him to go bury the dead body in the backyard.
Yes.
If Guillermo never said another word the remainder of the season and just gave those face shots, I would be thrilled.
He's great at being long-suffering.
And I love how they set up the big reveal, but they won't do it until Nandor won't talk until he's gone.
You know, talking about Guillermo's facial expressions, one of the things that I really liked about this episode is, and we didn't talk about it like in the early parts, before they had figured out the very first few scenes, before they figured out where Nandor has gone, watching how worried Guillermo is about Nandor. Because a lot of this episode, you know, it has the vampires really mad at Guillermo. They blame him totally for this scenario. They think it's entirely his fault that Nandor has done this and he's been completely disloyal. And, you know, we'll get to that because there is some talk towards the end of the episode between him and Nandor when they finally have their confrontation. But what I really loved as a fan of the show is that if you really, like you were talking about, a lot of Guillermo's character is in not what he says, it's in Harvey Gilliam's portrayals, in his face and his body language. And you could, in the beginning scenes when the vampires are just being ridiculous, running around, yelling in the wind, looking in the vents, you can see he is out of his mind with worry for Nandor and where Nandor has gone. But then, like, as soon as they find Nandor, it switches to, seriously, you're fine. Like, he's fine. He's just having a tantrum. I'm going to go sit in the car and charge my phone.
Yeah. But he has to come back in because he's just going to drain his battery.
Yeah.
I like how they set up the first big reveal with Nandor talking about his great army
Oh
and
my
how
Lord. I was not
important
ready
it
for that.
is to get to his war council meeting. You're welcome to join me if you like. And
It's all
you just
mannequins.
see mannequins in various stages of clothing. You've got some pantsless, some shirtless, some in you've got a lady in a sweater. There's a guy on the opposite side of the table actually posed as if he's thinking and looking at the table. The pointer that he uses, again, kudos to the set design. They really put the effort into making that reveal amazing. I rewound that scene several times to just spot little things
Different
in the
things.
background that were
The concubines.
Yeah.
It's just a pile of body parts.
He has his council, his reserves, and his concubines. Oh, they're so good. I like it when he greets them. Good evening, comrades. And Laszlo's response, what did he say? Well, fuck my old boots or something like that.
When I just realized how completely bananas that he's gone. I wrote, he's full Kurtz now because he has just completely become Marlon Brando's character from Apocalypse Now. And also, what about Hot K-Man? Like, this week, Nandor was shirtless
Nandor?
quite a bit. Yeah.
Oh, it's in my notes. That did not suck. Even when he was, I don't know what he was doing when they broke off for their side discussion, and he's in the background breaking the mirror.
It's Apocalypse Now. That is also Marlon Brando was shirtless through a lot, and he was just do the random weird shit, like the weird dances.
I've got to go
like
back and watch. I've seen that movie, but I remember very little, so I'm gonna go back and watch it just to laugh at more at this episode. I like it when they broke off to discuss his issues and not just like, I don't like to use this word, but he's crazy. And Colin Robinson's, I see someone is very well versed in psychology.
Colin Robinson got in a lot of really good one-liners at their expenses tonight. In this episode.
Nadja's like, well, we can't just, I think it was Laszlo, so we can't just leave him here. And Nadja's like, really? We can't?
Yeah. She was totally on board with, I'm out at this point. And she was just getting more annoyed. Like, she was starting to be like, this is just some male nonsense that I'm not.
And she wasn't wrong.
No, she was not. No. And we'll get into later several times throughout this episode where Nadja had to save the day.
I like it when they toss Guillermo out again and Colin Robinson, bye bitch. And he's like, Guillermo's like, don't call me bitch. And Nadja's like, bye bitch. That felt like bitch. A conversation that you and I have had with each other.
It was like the conversation we had on the last episode.
Yeah.
Oh, that was funny. And I loved how when Laszlo is saying, I was in the Navy, and that did not shock me at all, because there's this old quote. I think it's from Winston Churchill, but the Royal Navy in England was well known to be a haven of men who loved men. And Churchill had this quote that the only thing the Navy was good for was rum, sodomy, and the lash, which sounds just like a good time on a Friday night to Laszlo. So I was not surprised that he had joined the Navy and then left when no one was giving him any. What was it? Why did he leave? There was no medals and there was too much fighting. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Did you notice when Nandor was writing his war notes, he spelled war WOR?
Yes, I did. I think there were a couple of other misspellings.
Just like he says it.
Yeah, war notes.
I got a huge crack out of Nadja's immediate disdain when they decide they're going to try to dive into the delusion and help him through it. Yeah. And she has to call him sir. And she's just getting more and more pissed off.
Yeah. And that's what I would have left too, Nadja.
Her working out. Yeah. That is exactly me when someone says, let's work out. That I am Nadja. I'm like, I am angry. I will say bad things about about you. And I felt
not
hurt.
not a shock that Colin Robinson immediately fell in line as the guy that loved being in an army. And he too, as he started to really buy into Nandor's delusions and really enjoy this new army game that they're playing, that was also based on characters from Apocalypse Now. I think it was mostly supposed to be Dennis Hopper's character, who was this drugged out photojournalist who had originally just come to Vietnam because he was recording the war, and somehow he just became Kurtz's like #1 fan, biggest believer, who would do anything for Kurtz, including like torture people, other Americans, and things like that. And yeah, Colin Robinson was ripe to be that guy. He was as much as and when he said he wanted to be the logistics officer, and I thought I knew what this was, but I googled it to make sure. The logistics officer is basically the supply manager for the army. It's like the most boring job you could have. That's why he really, really wanted it.
It's 100% suitable for Colin Robinson.
For Colin Robinson, right?
I like how they continue on with the way his character always gets over involved in the fantasy of whatever storyline is happening.
Yeah, he just buys it all in.
I remember the character you were just talking about in Apocalypse Now. That I remember, and I like it when they come back and Colin Robinson's running behind him with all his jewels, or I guess it's supposed to be like a 70s-ish stuff on, and he's like, "Can you dig?"
Yeah, that's yes. If you go back and watch, and I did watch a couple of clips because some of the quotes that he has of there was one where he's like, "I'm a small man. He's a great man. Why would you speak that way to a great man?" That is straight up from the movie, and I was watching those clips tonight just verify that was pretty much a direct quote, and it made me think too, dang it, I got to go back and watch this movie. I didn't enjoy it because of the company I was with, and just also the fact that every dude that was trifling that I knew back in the 90s absolutely worshipped that movie. But yeah, Dennis Hopper has been crazy for a long time, and that's where it started. I think that's where he really got his start as that kind of a character actor that plays the whacked out Drogo guy.
I love when Nandor just came up to Laszlo with the clippers and was about to shave his hair, and Laszlo's
shave
like,
your
"What?"
head. Yeah, you're not touching Laszlo's beautiful flowing locks. I liked how Siri was Alexa was the communications officer.
And when he has her Lieutenant Alexa play JoJo's leave when he wants Guillermo to get out, but he tells Guillermo he makes him wait for the chorus, and Guillermo does.
It's done. Really? Alexa, play Scarborough Fair by Simon and the Garfunkels.
The Garfunkel. I loved that. That was another good reveal when he's having this deep conversation and you don't know is he talking to someone in the ether? And the guy's like, "Yeah, that sounds awful, Nandor. But would you like to request a song?" Yes. And it's the radio host.
Yes, that was another quote from Apocalypse Now. But yes, and then he gets out this weird ass saying, and then it turns out he's talking to a radio host requesting. Oh, that's right. He wasn't requesting that from Alexa. He was calling the radio show and asking them to play that.
Yeah,
that's right.
Lieutenant Alexa was JoJo.
Yeah, she played JoJo.
To get Guillermo out. From now on, I will refer to quotation marks as winky fingers.
Winky fingers. That was so cute.
That was adorable. That made me want to hug him.
That was very cute.
Okay, I'm going to segue into the serious before we finish up the factory portion of the episode. I just want to say that I want to give a nod to the writers for their ability to have a comedy show and still cut through that and give you a serious, heartfelt, really amazing, sweet moment between two characters, but still by the time it's over, you're still laughing, even though they just tugged at your heart. And this conversation between Nandor and Guillermo did that. And, all of this started because Gizmo had to fire Nandor and it hurt his feelings. And I like that they forced this conversation to happen because it gave Nandor the chance to tell Guillermo, loyalty. What is one of the jokes that he says, talking about the confession of his human days, that he might have betrayed some of the wives, but it was a different time.
Yeah, but never a comrade.
Right. But that, he felt like he abandoned him. I've been loyal to you for all these years. I raised you to be a vampire, and then the time comes
saved you.
And,
did you like how he brought up the
from
time
the glitter, the time he didn't go get the glitter?
Yes, from the very first episode.
Creepy paper.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's got to be my favorite episode.
Yeah.
I like that they got that out. I like that Guillermo heard him and acknowledged his feelings and then said something that sometimes, in all seriousness, we all have to realize with friendships, relationships, that you're on different paths now, and that's okay. You don't have to be moving in the same direction, but it also doesn't mean that you can't still be there and be a part of each other's lives. And I don't know if it's just because I'm emotional over the election and everything, but I teared up with that whole conversation.
I liked it a lot. I thought it showed the heart of that show. I think you said it beautifully. That's what makes this a really great show, I think, is that it's so freaking silly, but at the heart of it, there is this really good relationship between all of these characters. They really care about each other, and they really go out of their way to be there for each other. And even though they screw each other over all the time, they always come back to these moments where they clear the air and have, what can sometimes be really adult. I mean, I got the same thing you did. I thought, wow, you just don't see, and I will say, especially two men having this kind of emotionally intelligent conversation with each other where you acknowledge, you hurt me, you hurt my feelings. And I love that Guillermo didn't apologize except to say, I'm sorry that you were hurt, and that I understand why you feel the way you do, but then was able to clarify, here's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And
Nandor hurt him as well,
right,
which is not normal for Nandor.
Right. There's been growth there. There's been real growth. And, part of me, I didn't love to hear Guillermo say they were going in different directions because, I love them together. But I think that needs to be part of the next. I think it's going to be a fun thing. I still think in the end, them growing apart and not having that master-servant relationship is going to lead them to realize that they want to be with each other, whether that ends up just being friends or family or what have you in some way. I think it's still going to lead to the end where they realize they really love being companions with each other, not because they are master and servant, but because they really have something to offer each other as a real relationship.
Yeah.
And do you want to get into talking about, because I think too, like the hilarious B-line storyline that was going on with when Naja and Laszlo left to go find what turned out to be fireworks to help with the plan to get Nandor out of his lair. And when they're fighting, and Laszlo says, Nadia's trying to get him to clarify what exactly they're going to look for. And he's been dismissive of her a couple of times already. And he, again, is just like, this is something with a scientific, you wouldn't understand. And she gets mad at him because he basically calls her stupid, and then he says, no, I wouldn't say that. That would be a stupid thing to say. And then she gets really mad and tries to storm off, and he goes, Naja, what I meant to say was something with an identical sentiment that wouldn't piss you off. That is the most married argument.
That's what I have in my notes. It's like, if this isn't every spouse and spouse situation out there, I don't know what is.
I'm not sorry for what I said. I'm sorry that you rightly figured out that I meant you're dumb. But I would have never said it in that way because I don't want to deal with you being mad.
But I like that she's, because he kept screwing up. It was, that was, First he says that, then he's like, my darling, I understand why you're upset. It's must be your time of the month. And
Oh
if
yeah,
that is a common,
that's such a.
I will
Oh,
fight. I
I
will
will kill
fight.
you. Yes.
That
Yeah,
is
I often
the
say, guys.
gentlemen listening, never ever say that to you. I don't care if that is part of why things make, just shut up.
No,
Don't just,
I'm gonna drop some knowledge on you men that are out there listening right now. I really hate when I hear men talk about things like women shouldn't be in power because they become hormonal once a month. Let me explain something to you. Our entire lives are us just swallowing down the idiocy around us and trying to find the most polite, kind, gentle way to try to get our point across. Because if you try to say it in a firm, decisive way, well, there's a word for that they use for women like that.
and try being a woman of color and doing that. Not only
For
are you
sure.
an angry
Woman, you're an
biatch,
angry
now
black
you're
woman.
an angry black woman.
Yeah. The difference between us and us on our period is that at that point in time, we are in so much physical pain and discomfort that we just can't with the bullshit anymore. It is not that we become irrational once a month. It is that we are incapable of dealing with the bullshit that we deal with on the daily at that point. So, yes, you are more likely to lose your life in a snapped situation at
And
that
we
point.
will get away with it in the court of law.
Right.
For
But
now.
what you should remember is that it's not that we're crazier then, we're just more sick of your shit. So,
Well, I
again,
want to
off my
elaborate
soapbox.
to that. And I want to add that I've had this argument with a lot of dudes, and I'm going to spare our amazing listeners the graphics of what the female body goes through at that point. But note, I have said it to a lot of men who are like disappointed that it's harder on them to deal with us during that time of the month
Bless
than
your
it
heart.
is for us.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to spare you, but if you don't know, go look it up.
I think
You got nothing. You got nothing, man.
I
You
think there
got
is
nothing.
actually machines that you can buy that simulate what cramps are like. And that's
men,
only a
I've
fraction
seen
of it.
men hit the ground at like level 1.
Right. And that's not even giving you all of the discomfort and untidiness and all of that other stuff
It's
that goes
awful.
along with it.
So
Yeah.
sorry, I got a little grumpy with you, baby boy.
Right. But to be fair, and I will move on, the other thing that I loved about that, because Nadia does just get absolutely and rightly sick of his shit. But I will say, too, that one of the things, and the reason I was tying it back to the conversation that Nandor and Laszlo had, that Nandor and Guillermo had, is that you go on then to see that Laszlo has a vulnerable moment and he tells
was
her
insecure.
he was insecure. And this is also true, I believe, that men, where the world, I think, can often be unfair for men, is that you are never allowed to admit that you just don't know, that you don't have all the answers, that you don't have the ability to solve the woman you love or the person that you love's problems. And that's a lot of pressure that men have put on them in this society to never be vulnerable, to never admit that maybe they're struggling or they don't know what's going on. And even though it's just a silly show and he's just looking for fireworks to make his crazy
That are
friend
right across the street
But
and
yes.
a big sign that says fireworks.
Yes. Yeah. But then Naja has to tell him, I don't expect you to solve all my problems for me. And he's so sweet. And he tells her, I feel like I have to provide for you. You're not only the most beautiful woman in the world.
She's got a 10 out of 10
She's got a
vagina.
10 out of 10. Yes. She's not just the most beautiful woman in Staten Island, which, woo, that's saying something. She's the most beautiful woman in the world, and she's got a 10 out of 10 poon. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
all right. Hey.
That's probably one of the best compliments I've ever heard a man give a woman. I did think it was sweet, though, because, you could tell he was insecure about the fact that she doing her own thing now, like you
Right.
said, and it's his job. And you're right. A lot of people, a lot of men are raised to believe that it's their job to take care of a woman. And when a woman steps out of the home and is able to do her own thing, it does bring about insecurities. And it led to a very funny moment, but I thought it was very good
Very
of him
sweet.
to admit that, well, I don't like you being a working woman, but her response is, it's a job. You show up, pretend to do stuff, and you leave. And he's like, well, who the fuck would want to do that?
Right. Agreed.
Like, that sums up the workforce pretty clearly right there.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny.
They did a great job of telling some funny stories, but also
some real truths,
and delivering it in a way that nobody
felt preached to or anything like that. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that they really like that, where he told her that, he felt like he had to be this provider for her because he did think she was so exceptional. And I loved, and I think you and I, we've both been married forever. And I think we've both had those conversations with our husband where we see him putting so much stress on himself to be perfect. And we have to turn to him and say, I don't want perfection from you. I love you for who you are. I don't expect you to be perfect. I don't need you to solve my problems or to shield me from everything that might upset me. I need you to be my best friend and be who you are and let me love you and help, and I feel valuable and valued when we work as a team, not you're the provider and I am the person that's just sitting there passively, or vice versa.
Yeah, it's an equal partnership.
Yeah.
And it is something that you have to put effort into and work at every day, but it's not. I always like to say it's a two-way street. It's not, one person doesn't have to carry more than the other. And that to me is, and, honest communication, I think is really what goes a long way.
And I think
to
it's
make
why
a marriage
we both
work. And
right.
If two people have honest communication, it would be Nandor and Nadja.
Yeah, they have they really do. And that was what was so, like, by the end of he was messing up throughout the whole episode, but he stopped and he was honest with her and she solved their problems for them immediately once he told her what it was that he was needing. And I think that they just have really have a very good marriage for two wacky, polyamorous, hundreds of year old vampires on a TV show. They're a really good example of a good marriage.
And it was sweet too that he tried to break the window and she's like, try it again. And she does her little thing, but lets him think he broke the window. And I'm like, that is marriage.
Yeah. It's a
give and take. It's lifting each other up and not needing to be the one that's the bright shining star all the time.
Yeah.
To let your partner shine. And I thought that was very cute.
It was.
I do want to go back to the end of the episode. My favorite thing about Nandor being ready, once, of course, they come, he and Guillermo are having this very sweet moment. And of course, the other two show up, and along with Colin Robinson, everything just goes to shit with the fireworks. And Nandor realizing that on the way home that they thought that the mannequin army was his real army.
Yeah. And then he has a real army.
But he missed his favorite sword.
I miss
that. Okay going home because he really does miss his favorite sword.
I missed that line. How did I miss that? I watched this episode, no joke, probably 7 times this week. I totally missed that line.
Well, if you watch it again, it's when they show up and they've all decided he's going to go home, and he explains that he does miss his favorite sword.
I love that he tells the army that they've got to go find their purpose, and he's going to find his purpose, and he feels like their purpose should go be attack Dartmouth College because
we ride for Hanover
because they produce all of the nerds that go work at that company.
Colin Robinson chasing after them. You're gonna need logistics.
Yeah.
I love them ending on Nandor lassoing Colin Robinson. He's like,
still got it.
Still got it.
Yeah, that was. Oh man, I love that line. That when they were like, What did he say? He said, I can't remember what Laszlo asked him, but he was like, I'm just a really fucking good general. I was like, yeah, badass
You tell him,
Nandor.
Nandor. It's sexy. It's a
Yeah.
little Nandor sexiness there.
Nandor was pretty hot this episode. I'm not gonna lie.
I
I
like
like
how
seeing confident
insulted.
Nandor.
Yeah. I like how insulted he looked when he realized that they thought the mannequins was his
Mannequins were his real
army.
army. Yeah.
And when he is explaining to the troops that he's going on his own path and then that they need to find theirs, and he's going south down I-93 and maybe cut through Jersey if there's traffic.
Maybe we'll cut through Jersey. I like when they ask him what their purpose should be, and he goes, I don't know, blow up a Walmart or some shit.
Yeah.
And Guillermo's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Bless his heart. And then cops, when they get, of course, in their whole comedic shtick is they're all together, and Nandor's in the trunk, Nadja and Laszlo are in the back seat, and Guillermo's fine. Everything is fine. The cop pulls him over, and Laszlo's like, "It's the coppers,"
Yeah.
and
they start freaking out.
And then Guillermo's like, oh, yeah, I had taillights out. I've been meaning to fix that. And everything is fine. And then Nadja is like, hey, officer, I don't forget what she called him, but
her heaving bosoms or something like that.
Jiggling all over the place.
Yeah.
And then
Laszlo
like,
hits on the cop.
Yeah, and the cop's like, get out of the car. And Guillermo's just like, come on, man. And then...
both of their solutions were to try to seduce, both Laszlo and Nadja's solutions was to try to seduce the cop.
And then to hypnotize him.
Yeah.
And tell him to go handcuff himself to a tree.
Which he does.
Which he does. And then they lasso Colin Robinson, and they're like, hey, Gizmo, get that. And he's just like, what? And it's just, and everything's back to normal. And
we're back to
what we do in the shadows.
Yep. Yep. It's all heading back home. Everything's same old, same old.
I loved it. I thought it was, I think it was one of the better episodes that they've ever had.
Yes, it was a classic for sure. That's going to go down for me. As I said at the beginning of the first episode we did, I knew that we were going to be building up to some really great stuff this season, and I am not being disappointed at all. This was a really, really good. I will watch this episode probably 100 times over the next few years.
This is going down with crepey paper.
Yes.
Do you have any additional thoughts or quotes or anything about the show?
No, I think I got in everything. If you let me, I could spend the next 2 hours here just spitting out nerd facts about this show and Apocalypse Now. And I don't think anybody in America is wanting that. So,
well, I think that save it for the
director's cut
recap.
Okay.
Because I am going to go watch Apocalypse Now in the next week and take notes so I can compare to this episode. And you can always call me.
I feel like you're going to find, because I thought about that. I was like, man, at some point I'm going to have to rewatch the show because, again, cannot stress enough what a crappy memory it was for me when I was forced to spend 3 hours watching this. It is a 3-hour movie back in the 90s, but I have just, it's enough pop culture references in there that I was like, I know that is a quote. So I picked a lot of them up, but I guarantee you when you go back and watch it, there's going to be a million other things that were like, they very deliberately were like, we're going to do it. I feel like somebody somewhere was like, all right, last season, we're going to do the Apocalypse Now episode. Somebody has been planning this for a very long time.
Well, they nailed it.
Yeah, they did. And I think that we're going to find a million other instances that were lifted straight out of the movie when we go back and watch it.
I love it. We're going to move on to feedback. We got another live Steve voicemail, and I just want you guys to know we don't listen to these ahead of time, so it's just fun to be surprised like you all are. So here we are with Steve's thoughts on this episode.
Hello, what's on tonight? This is Steve, and this is going to be for What We Do in the Shadows, Season 6, Episode 5, Nandor's Army? Oh, so it's been weeks since the last episode when Guillermo fired Nandor. $3 reward on the reward poster. The Return of the Baron is amazing.
Yes.
Can't wait to see what happens with him. Okay, I can't not acknowledge the homage to Apocalypse Now with the Baron playing Nandor's tape and Nandor talking about the snail crawling across the edge of a razor. I hope you guys recognize the movie Apocalypse Now from the 70s with Martin Sheen and just so many great actors. A wonderful, wonderful war movie. Not wonderful, it's great. Anyway. Oh, it's such a great opening credits change for this homage to road movies and whatever else is going to come along here that they're parodying and talking about. Oh, Nandor's War Council is a bunch of mannequins. That's creepy. An errand boy sent by greengrocers to spy on me.
Another quote from the movie.
B-word. Bye-bye, B-word. Colin Robinson really seems to be taking to the space and training very, nicely. Oh, Colin Robinson just threw that rifle up in the air and caught it. I don't know how many takes that took or if he got it on the first one. Laszlo and Nadia are great together. It's just so good. I love this conversation on the street. What I wanted to say was something that wouldn't piss you off. I noticed the Christmas trees in the background. I wonder if this was supposed to be, like a Christmas show or if they started it early or what. Oh, yeah. That's the best thing to do, Laszlo. Tell her it's her time of the month and she's being over-emotional. Wrong. Aw. Nadia used her telekinesis to help Laszlo throw the newspaper thing through the window. When did she get telekinesis? Oh, I love it. I was waiting for somebody to do the Dennis Hopper role from Apocalypse Now, and there's Colin Robinson saying, I'm a little man. He's a great man. That's great. That's so totally Apocalypse Now. And the Ride of the Valkyries, just like in Apocalypse Now, there's so much.
I missed that one.
Guillermo just said, Nandor's Army, title of the episode, mic drop. I feel sorry for Dartmouth College. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. You just made Mandy's day. I'm sorry I laughed or got so excited over the comment. Can imagine how happy Mandy is. Thank you for your message, Steve. I agree with everything that you said in the episode, and we hope we will hear from you next week.
We also received a kind note on YouTube from @Cola2178 on our last episode. Great job. Look forward to your thoughts on the rest of the season.
Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys writing in and sending voicemails. Please keep the feedback coming. If you would like to leave us feedback or just say hey, you can email or send us a voice message as an attachment to what'sontonight2@gmail.com. That's what's on tonight and the number 2@gmail.com. You can visit our Facebook page where there will be a post for the next episode, and you can leave feedback in the comments section or send us a message through Facebook Messenger. We can also be found on Instagram at What's On Tonight Podcast number 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you leave a review, comment, and or like or share on your podcast listening app of choice. We would greatly appreciate that.
We will be continuing our coverage of What We Do in the Shadows next week with Season 6, Episode 6, titled Laszlo's Father. Ooh,
I didn't even watch the scenes for next week, but I am so excited for this. Once we wrap our coverage of this show, we are going to figure out what we'll cover next. If you have any suggestions on what that should be, or if there's anything you'd like to chat with us about, doesn't even have to be about TV or movies. It could be about anything. Feel free to let us know.
Becky, where else can listeners hear you and any podcast recommendations?
I can be heard on Adrenaline Cinema Podcasts. Billy and Mark just released their review of the horror movie Longlegs there. Check it out. I can also be heard on Panels to Pixels podcast, where Mark, Steve, and I just finished our coverage of Agatha All Along. Please take a moment and check out that episode. It was we had a lot of fun covering that. And also I can be heard here on What's On Tonight podcast. Couple of podcast recommendations. One of my favorites with Penny and Kara, Still Slaying a Buffyverse podcast, is about to start their rewatch of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm super stoked about that. The Cast of Us where Jason and Lucy just finished their last coverage of the last episode of Daryl Dixon, the Book of Carol. And I also highly recommend for those of you, the Penguin lovers, the Penguin on HBO Max, check out TV Podcast Industry's coverage of that show. They're doing a phenomenal job.
It looks really good. I like that. I
It's
don't watch it,
great.
but that Christina Milioti, I love her in anything she does. And I've seen some of the clips and she looks fantastic. And if I can ever get enough of my ADHD brain together to actually sit and watch, I don't watch a lot of television because I just don't have the attention span for it anymore. And of course, I'm not on any other podcasts, but I do want to say that this week's Dateline, as I mentioned last week, I am a massive Dateline fan and I have a huge crush on Keith Morrison. This week was a Keith Morrison episode. And not only that, it was a case from Dyersburg, Tennessee. So if you aren't on a regular listener, but you're interested in true crime, I highly recommend this week's episode. And if you're a Tennessean, highly recommend this episode, if for no other reason than the fact that you get to hear Keith Morrison say the who's who of Dyersburg society was at the Halloween party. It was one of the highlights of my life. And I also do want to recommend, I saw there's a movie, an actress I really, really like is Anna Kendrick. She is a great actress.
Oh, I know
She's
what you're going to say.
The Woman of the
movie.
Hour. It is so
good.
Yeah, I think she directed.
She did.
And I'm a big true crime fan, and I also have kind of a morbid fascination with serial killers. And the Rodney Alcala story is truly infuriating as a woman if you ever knew anything about it. So she did a great job bringing it to life, and I really recommend it to anybody that's got an interest in that subject at all. It was very, very well done.
I think Mandy is giving us a good list of things that we can cover once we're done with what we do in the shadows.
Right on.
Anything else?
Nope.
Before we go, I do want to give a big thank you to Mark and Pirate Corps Entertainment for giving us this platform. Please visit the Pirate Corps website. It can be found on our Facebook page, and there you can find our podcast as well as check out other podcasts that are available.
That wraps up our coverage of episode 5 of the final season of What We Do in the Shadows.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight.
Bye.
Bye.